on, everybody?
Hey there.
That horn had a moment.
Wow. Can we talk about how good a good horn section is on songs?
Shoot.
For example, just listen.
This one.
If that doesn't just make your hips want to swing around a little bit.
Swivel a little.
Swivel, that's the word. Shimmy.
My name is Maryl, and that is Maria, and this is the Bold Women Podcast.
Welcome, guys.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, have a seat, and
Grab some coffee.
Yeah, grab a coffee,
Some
grab
water.
some
Drink water, friends.
Some water, as my mother would say.
What is it in East Coast? Water ice? Water? Isn't it? Water, yeah.
No, that's what my mom says. She's from Jersey.
Well, that's right. She is from Jersey, isn't
Jersey.
she? She's a jazzy girl.
Yeah. Okay, well, my friends, today's episode is a very special one. Bittersweet to say, but this will be our final recording for this podcast.
Yeah.
A little bittersweet.
A little bittersweet. Over some time, both of us have felt quite a tugging and undeniable sense that big changes are ahead. We don't quite know what's coming next, but we do know that this is a season of preparation for both of us and of opening our hearts and our hands to whatever God is leading us towards. And part of that preparation is recognizing when it's time to close a chapter.
Yeah, listening to that homie spirit is very important.
Huge.
So we want to take a moment, express our deepest gratitude to our listeners who have journeyed with us through so many conversations, so many side stories as well.
So many.
You've shared in our struggles, our healing and restoration, and your presence has mattered more than we can even say. Thank you for engaging with our content by posting and tagging us on your stories, which, by the way, we do have our social media up still. We're on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of that. So feel free to reach out, check in. I don't think I'm going to do anything with the Instagram. I don't know if I'm going to shutter it. I think we're just going to leave it.
Yeah.
So yeah, shoot us an email.
Wow.
We don't even have an email. Shoot us a message. Or you can follow us individually. I think we've tagged ourselves in somewhere in the bio or something like that too. But yeah, we just want to thank you for engaging with our content, posting, tagging us on your stories, sharing our TikToks, Reels, posts, leaving reviews and comments, and reaching out to us through DMs to discuss your thoughts on topics that were covered and for suggesting ideas for new topics, asking questions. One of our only hopes for this podcast was that if this whole thing impacted just one person in a way that brought them closer to Christ, then all of the hours of planning, writing, researching, and recording were absolutely worth it. We also want to thank our wonderful producer, Byron. He opened his studio to us. He taught us so much about podcasting and shared tons of wisdom with us. He was even on some episodes with us for some laughs and good conversation.
Or strange stories.
He was just a great addition here and there to just pop in and throw his 2 cents in. Yes. He's been so giving of his time, and we appreciate everything he's done behind the scenes to make it possible for all of you to be able to listen. And we wouldn't have been able to do any of it without him. So thank you so much, Byron. We love you, and we thank you and your family for being so accommodating to us. And we also want to thank our families and friends who provided us with honest feedback and wisdom, for supporting us in our endeavor to process questions and seasons in life. It means so much that you guys listened, that you took time to give your thoughts on what you liked or don't like, etc. It was just so helpful, and we really appreciated it.
And we also wanted to thank our incredible guests who poured their wisdom into the space. And we are beyond thankful for the generosity that you've shown in sharing your stories, insights, and times. That's so vulnerable to do. And I know that's just can be such a scary place. And you all did that so graciously with us. I would like to thank, I know we would like to thank, not I, but my counselor, Philip. So if you've listened to any of our Ask the Counselor episodes, Philip Smith, who took time away to come share his wisdom, and you created a safe place for us to ask really hard questions. So we just wanted to say thank you. Words cannot express how much your willingness to do that helped us believe in what we were doing. So we just wanted to say thank you to you too, Philip.
Yeah, and he would drive it was over an hour to get to where we were when he would come and visit. So it was seriously just thank you, Philip. It was really awesome having you on and getting to share your knowledge and help us kind of process, some of the trickier things. It was super great.
Yeah.
Man, gotta thank our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Heck yeah! First and foremost, even though we're mentioning him third, but we
but ultimately and
everything to him.
Yeah. I feel like this podcast journey for the two of us was a lot of processing.
Facts.
There's a lot of us processing some major stuff we were going through in life, and thank God we were able to do it together.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine being by myself trying to do that.
Yeah, what a freaking blessing this whole thing has been. It's been just so great to go through all of that and get to be vulnerable. And a lot of you guys, aside from a couple hater beans, there really wasn't that many.
No.
There really wasn't that many. We also just never got enough traction of a following to really lure in any hater beans to just listen for the sheer fact of throwing haterade in our direction. So
shout out to the 7% men though.
Yeah.
We'll shout you guys out too. See you.
Thanks for listening to a women's podcast and, trying to gain perspective. That's awesome. And who else are we missing? Anybody? We probably are.
Probably missing so many people.
I know. But
I don't know, to tag onto that, just really grateful. We've had conversations about how so much of this podcast was just a blessing, even in and of itself for us processing life. And so I'm sure there's some episodes that were pretty raw that you guys were able to walk through with us, and the number of tears that have been cried on in these mics. But I know it's all been for purpose and reason, and if anything, even within our lives. So just thank you for hanging with us, and just so you know you're not alone when you go through those journeys.
If our podcast tells you anything, it means we've gone through probably very similar things.
Yeah.
Ending something, especially something meaningful, can feel daunting. It's what we were saying at the beginning, like how important it is to recognize when a season is coming to an end. That's also an act of faith. So because, endings aren't final, this podcast may be final, but, they're just invitations into what's next. Which brings us, not what brings us, which brings us to today's episode, which is the simple and yet powerful idea that it is A-OK to dream.
Whereas Chelsea says that, and that's okay.
And that's okay. Actually, Brenda Nestor, her mom
that was Brenda?
That. Yeah.
Oh.
Brenda's a great gal.
Hey, Brenda. So many of us stop ourselves from dreaming. We convince ourselves that playing it safe will spare us from disappointment, or we feel the weight of expectations, either our own or those placed on us, that make dreaming feel impractical and honestly even irresponsible.
What if dreaming wasn't just about wishful thinking?
Go on.
What if it was an act of faith? So one of the scriptures that we're focusing on is Hebrews 11:1, which says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." So faith teaches us to hope in what we cannot yet see. Then dreaming is part of that faith. It's trusting that more is possible, even when we don't know exactly how it'll unfold. So today we want to dive into that a little bit, why it's okay to dream, why holding on to hope matters, and how we can move forward even when we don't have all the answers. So let's talk about it. Let's dream a little bit. Dreams are powerful, personal, sometimes fragile, even. And yet for so many of us, it feels pretty risky.
Yeah. At some point, we all encounter the pressure, like we said earlier, whether it's self-imposed or comes from those around us, to be realistic, to play things safe, to lower our expectations so we don't have to deal with disappointment. Somewhere along the way, dreaming starts to feel impractical, maybe even naive. But what if dreaming wasn't just about wishful thinking? What if dreaming was a part of faith itself? Today, we want to lean into this conversation, that the idea that it's okay to dream. Dreaming doesn't mean ignoring reality, but embracing the possibility that God's plans are greater than our own. So today we're talking about dreaming, why we resist it, why we need it, and how faith makes room for hope even in seasons of uncertainty.
That's good.
Sheesh.
All right, let's dig into some questions here.
Me to you, have you ever been afraid to dream or get your hopes up?
Thinking about what you were just saying a minute ago, I don't think I ever was afraid. I think I had just been dealing with a lot of pain and masked it by calling myself a realist. I actually had, family members would tell me, like, you're so cynical. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. I'm just looking at reality. Like, I am a realist. And it wasn't that I thought dreaming was ridiculous or anything. I just thought, sure, someone can dream, but it's important to look at the negative aspects in order to prepare oneself for less disappointment should something not work out.
Like play devil's advocate to everything.
Yeah, and that way I can be pleasantly surprised if things do work out. I subscribed to that and like big time. And I would literally tell people that sort of thing all the time because, I mean, it wasn't just my family. I've had a lot of people be like, geez, you're like harsh or critical or, whatever, name it. And I sort of just embraced that and was like, yeah, I am. I would often say, that dreaming, well, it wasn't that I would say it. I just had this perspective. And I sort of, in so many words would tell people that too, that like dreaming was naive for people who hadn't been punched in the face with real life. And I think that, isn't too uncommon for people all over the world, especially when life has come at them hard.
Yeah.
I think it's really, it's easy to lose that spark for life when life has just been smacking you in the face.
Would you almost call it even like a sense of wonder too? That kind of.
Yeah, it gets dimmed, I think. I think it gets dimmed when you just have a lot of things happen in life and it seems like you either can't do anything right or, just a series of negative things happen over and over and over again. And so, yeah. What do you think about that?
I think I definitely have. And especially if it would come with major change or fear of disappointing people.
Okay.
I remember I had a conversation, this was a couple of years ago, maybe even like 3, I don't even know where time goes, with our pastors. And I was just like, I don't have hope anymore. Like I remember just feeling that, like, if anything that I've ever been excited about, anything that I've ever, like, I thought this, and I was like, and it's all just come crumbling down. Like, so it's like, that feeling of, well, why get it up if it's like
why get your hopes up?
Why get your hopes up? Yeah. Why get your hopes up? Thank you.
Maybe that's my fault.
It's not your fault. I was trying to just keep going.
All right, here we are trying to be serious. Keep
okay.
going.
No, but just in that spot of, I'm so tired of hurting, I would rather not hope than this isn't even in, like, I know my hope should be in Jesus, not in a situation, but it's just like, man, even if a situation could just be good, like, not even that a situation has to work out exactly the way that I think, but it's just like, that defensive side of, if I don't hope for anything, then I'm not hurting as bad. Like, it's very much defensive. So I think when you said that, you hit that spot on after lots of back-to-back disappointment, that one would rather not get their hopes up, because a pleasant surprise feels a whole lot nicer than the pain of disappointment.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the lie that the enemy likes to sneak in at these points is that you're doing something wrong, or that God is mad at you, or dare you say, quote unquote, he loves others and is pleased with others more than you, because you see all these answered things and you see him working. Of course, like when you're in that spot, right, you see the blessings in everybody else's life, and it just, sometimes it makes it feel like, well, what am I doing wrong that I'm just facing disappointment and somebody else is getting answered prayer after answered prayer. So I think that's a lie that the enemy likes to get in, to just like bury us into that season and take our hope. So one of the things that's just kind of stood out to me in the past couple of years, and that kind of even points me to hope. It says oftentimes we want to see the hand of God move or him do something in our life or crazy for us, but we actually don't want to be in a place that we have to hope or need his hand.
Yeah, no, that's totally true.
So it's like, okay, we want to see God move and do all these things and hope for these things, but it's like, I actually don't really want to be in that position because it puts me out of control. I have no say on the outcome.
Yeah.
I want to see God work a miracle in my life, but miracles have to happen where things look impossible. So,
I think about our summer conversations or the ghosting episode, particularly with dating. And I know that a lot of unmarried folks can relate to what I'm about to say, because there is just nothing worse when you just have a series of like negative experiences when you're just trying to find your mate. You're like, Lord, I'm out here trying to do
I'm trying to date well. I'm not trying just to,
I'm trying I'm trying to make sure that my intentions and the way that I am doing this is lined up with what your word says about how I'm supposed to be treating the opposite sex, all of this stuff. And I'm getting more into your word. I'm getting involved in community, making sure my heart's right, or trying to, and then you're still met with disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And I think about, I remember it was really hard. That was really hard for a long period of time where I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, this is why, a lot of times in prayer, I'd be like, Lord, I just want to give up. This is so ridiculous. What's the freaking point? Like, I am just going to be single forever because this is just so exhausting and nothing is going the way that I thought it would. And everything is turning out just to be an absolute dumpster fire. And so why bother? And it occurred to me, like I had to go through. So I went through, it's funny because we're talking about this and I'm actually having this sort of realization now as I'm saying it, but it's like, I went through a lot of setbacks and a lot of disappointments. Everybody does, right? But the way that I viewed things at the time was with a cynical viewpoint, where I tried to mask it by saying I was a realist and all this stuff. And it was like, don't get your hopes up, because then, if you don't have anything to be excited for, then you don't really have much to disappoint you, really, because you just expect the bad things to happen and whatever.
Then I'm not surprised. I'm not taken off guard.
Exactly. You're not taken off guard. But guess what? It's like, I am reminded that I was set through continual disappointment because I had to change the way that I was viewing it.
Thinking it.
And like looking at it like, you can't go through disappointment and disappointment and disappointment. Because I do remember several conversations that I've had with some of my girlfriends where I would have these moments where it was just like, but I can't, I can't give up. Like, I know my spouse is out there because I cannot have been taken to this point in my life
to just be
completely try and turn things around for myself. And finding a spouse isn't the be all end all, but I know that, like, for me, this is just, kind of how my story, a huge critical part of my story in turning back to Christ had to do with my divorce. So that's the only reason why I'm saying, I'm not saying that, marriage is a destination, because it absolutely is not.
Right.
But I say that to say it was just like, I think that there were things rooted in that disappointment where it was like, no, you're going to continue to experience disappointment. And he used dating for me to do that, to like get me to change. Like, no, this is an old way of thinking. I've said that so many times where that was such a critical thought that kept getting dropped into my mind, or I kept getting prompted by the Holy Spirit. You can't keep doing things the way that you used to. So I was like,
that was from the get-go, when you started to.
Yeah, that was before I even got divorced. It was just like, you can't keep doing this. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? And I was just so, and now I'm just realizing, like, I had to keep going through disappointment, because otherwise, if I didn't, and I didn't change my perspective on it, I would carry that into my marriage now, and then what would that look like?
Right.
what would that look like? I wouldn't have any hope for my new marriage. That
Or like when your new marriage hits hard times, because marriage does. Like reality of marriage is not just
it's not a walk in the park.
No, and so now you can face it with a different perspective.
That, so that's interesting.
That's really good.
One question I have for you, and it's based off of Hebrews 11:1. That I thought we should talk about. Is I'll just say the verse again.
Okay.
Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. How do you think this verse can encourage us to dream despite uncertainty?
Okay, this is something that I forget who told me this, and I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And I can't remember if it was like a conversation or a message that I was listening to. But we literally cannot have faith without hope. Like if you read that scripture. So I think that's another tool that the enemy uses is to get us to not hope, because you literally can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
So it says, like the verse says, faith is the assurance of things hoped for. So I cannot have assurance in faith in God being able to do anything if I don't have hope.
Yeah.
And then, and like you said earlier, like we aren't promised or I think too, even with it, like it doesn't necessarily mean that like everything's going to come out the way that we want it, but it's this ultimate trust that like, even like if I'm dreaming something so miraculous and good and, oh, I can't wait to see how God works in this and that he's going to do something awesome. And if it doesn't work out that way, that God's ways are higher. So if I'm dreaming something awesome where God gets glory and something great happens, but it doesn't happen that way, I can rest assured and keep my hope high because I know what God has is going to be even better than what I thought, and how he's going to work in a situation is going to be better and give like him more glory. And so my job is to trust that like he has better, or no matter what my hope looks like, that like he gets the glory and we can just rest. And I also think that it's that idea of like God created us and we're made in his image. So if he has the ability to think and create things, that he's given us that ability to think and dream. And if we're made in his image, that's part of like worship to him, is thinking and dreaming about good things.
That's good.
What about, do you have any, like when you read that, are you encouraged in any way or?
Well, when I was looking at this verse, it was like, I was thinking it tells us that faith isn't just blind optimism. So it's an assurance, a confidence in things that we can't see, right? Mm-hmm. And dreams fall into that category. Like dreaming isn't a frivolous or naive thing like I used to think.
Right.
It is an act of faith. It's actually biblical in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
If I'm wrong, but
no, I think it is.
I think it's just what you're saying too. It's like if we were created in his image, why would there even be a thing about dreaming if he didn't also dream?
And I think what he says to take all your thoughts captive when they start to get negative. So it's like what we do with our minds has night and day difference effects on our lives.
So when we allow ourselves to dream, we step into this posture of hope, and then we can believe that there is more ahead than what we are currently seeing. We're not promised that every dream will unfold exactly how we envision, but we are encouraged to trust in what is beyond our immediate grasp. So in that way, dreaming aligns with faith, and both require us to believe in possibilities beyond like what's happening right now.
You know what it makes me think of? The story, and I'm not sure if it's Elijah or Elisha. I always get those two. Those two bad boys mixed up. Almost when I'm reading it. Like I know which one I'm reading about, but when I'm telling it back. But where they
were one right after the other. So.
They're back to back. But the one is with his servant, and the servant wakes up and they're surrounded by an army. And
that sounds like Elijah.
That's what, yeah. And then he's like, Lord, and he prays, Lord, open his eyes so he can see. And then he said that his servant's eyes were opened and the hills were filled with horses and chariots of fire and like just a massive army. And he said that he could see that there are more with them than there are with us. I think that's kind of what dreaming does too, is it's like, and that's what faith puts it, is that side of like, I know I can't see everything, and I know I don't see what's going on in the spirit side of this life and earth and my story, but God sees everything, and he knows he sees way more into things, and it's always hopeful. Like, we're here panicking, freaking out, just like his servant was. Like, no, we're literally getting attacked. It's the two of us against an army. And then he just so casually is like, Lord, open his eyes. And then there's like, he can't like not see the end of the army that's with them. And I think that's what, whoa, sorry. I was talking with my hand and I hit my headphone cord.
Whipping her headphones cord.
Whipping it around over here.
Getting a little wild with her gestures.
Okay. Okay. On like the fun side of things is, what is a big dream that you have? Or is there, or do you sometimes feel afraid to dream or worried it won't match up with God's plan? Like, if there's something, what's something that like you're just like, man, that would be cool.
I would say one of my dreams in life, you and I have talked about this, is to be able to bless people financially. There are certain times in life I can point to where someone has extended some serious and amazing financial generosity to me, and I will never forget how needed that was, and what an answered prayer it felt like, and what a blessing it was to me. And on top of it, unexpected, and it was just so beautiful. And so I want to be able to impact people in that way as well. I also have dreams of being my own boss. What that looks like is still undetermined.
TBD.
But I feel like I've been feeling like I'm on the precipice of something really cool lately, and I just want to make sure that I'm positioned in the right way to be ready when God opens that door for me.
Yeah.
I never really grew up. I think when I was a kid, I would say something like, I want to be a vet or something like that. But I don't know that I really grew up with, there's so many people who are like, I have dreamed since I was a child of like being a doctor, or I've always wanted to help people in some way, or, someone who just like gets ignited with passion over helping people with finances, or, I don't know, you name it.
Right. I feel like doctor's a big one. Well, and some of that's you like, you hear that all the time. It's like, I'm going to go be a,
it's always like first responder type stuff. And then when they grow up, you're like, yes, checks out. You are exactly that type of person. And I love that. I love seeing that. But I don't think I ever really had like I had some dreams. It was like, okay, I want to be, I talked about this in one episode before. I wanted to be in the FBI, and then I wanted to be an attorney and whatever else. I don't know. But I don't think they were just like, they were not in line. They were not in line with what God had for me.
Right.
And also, I know that I recognize that there are things that I did, decisions I made too, that have impacted that. So it's like, maybe that would have been in the realm of possibility at some point, but somewhere along the way, it was like, we're going to steer you off this way instead.
The big side is, I know you and I've had that conversation before, but like, God's already worked out our life with our mistakes in mind.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, so that weight of, there could be multiple different possibilities that would be great and give God glory. And this was just the route that gives God glory.
I also, because you say that, I also think that I did not consider what would give God glory in this, in any of those previous positions that didn't work out. Yeah. I didn't have God in mind. I had my own glory in mind. So that's also probably why it didn't work out. The Lord was like, that's not what I want for you. That's what you want for you. But I have other plans.
That reminds me, I have a really good friend, and he's a great businessman. And he was talking about how his business did nothing. And he was trying so hard to get it off the ground, and nothing was moving for him. And then he had a mentor say, no one knows who you are, so why do you think that they're going to pay to have you come? He said, no, just point blank to him. Oh. And then he said something about like, no one's going to care about what you are passionate about unless you have something that you can give them. Right. And that he's like, and then you don't try to sell it. Like, you just give to people to give them. And he said the second he started, and he's a believer too. So the second he started doing that, his business has taken off, just like from that.
I don't remember who said it, but it was someone who was just a very successful in the eyes of the world type of person who said something similar to that was like, if you think that you want to be successful in life, then your goal has to be providing a solution to a problem people don't know they have.
Yeah.
And great advice.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit, then that's something to keep in mind as you're exploring business ventures.
I am reading the book right now, Many Communicate, Few Connect. I think I'm misstaying the title, but it's been, will you type it up? Cause that's.
Keep talking.
Okay. Anyways. Many Communicate, Few Connect.
Everyone
communicates. Yeah, that's it. By John Maxwell. And he's talking about, and he mentions, and he has so many, it's a great book, same for entrepreneurial spirits, but he talks about too, he was taking a test one time, and one of the questions on the test was, what is the janitor's name? And he was like, is this a real thing? And the guy was like, yeah, nobody's going to care what you have to say unless you know them. And actually digging in and, no, people want to know you care about them, that they can trust you, and that you have their best interest in mind. And from that place, you can actually make an impact. So it's realistically, it's not about you. I don't know. That's kind of a tangent, but that's what it made me think of.
What would be a big dream you have?
I think, like you said, we've talked about it before, but the financial piece, I would love to be able to pay off someone's student loans for college. Just be like, hey, don't worry about them.
That's kind of you.
I would love to be able to do that, or buy somebody a car. And then I have a few little silly ones, but they've kind of been there.
They're not silly.
This was even, oh my gosh, it was 2018 or 2019. Mm-hmm. I was talking with my brother and his wife, and I was like, guys, I want to design clothes for tall women so they can feel beautiful in them, but still be stylish. And I don't know, that was just something I don't know how to sew. Silly? I don't know. Because I'm not doing anything with that right now. I just so, but it's just a dream. I would dream to travel the world. Same. I would love to own my company own something, my own company as well. I just a couple of years ago, I did almost start a closet organization company. But nothing thrills me more than taking chaos and making order out of it. I've had potentially thoughts about going back to school for psychology or counseling.
Oh Lord, you could not pay me to go back to school.
I had thoughts about that. Yeah. And then I would love to have speaking engagements, and not about me, but helping people know and meet Jesus.
Yeah.
That. So how or what that all looks like, I have no clue. And what you said at the end of what your comment was, I just want to be positioned in the right way. And I literally just a couple of days ago was listening to a message, and the pastor was talking about how faith is like wind in a sail, but you just have to be pointing in the right direction. And when God brings the wind, it takes you. And I was like, oh,
that's so good.
Isn't that good?
Yeah, I love that.
And I was like, oh, that's a great picture, or way to picture of if I just have my stuff going in the right direction, I don't have to be the one to try to force it or make it go.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's a huge part about dreaming. And I think that is something that's important in your prayer life as you are, if you're younger, or you're just getting started in your professional life, or if you're thinking about starting over, that's probably where I would start is, just being prayerful about being positioned correctly, because there's nothing worse than stepping into something that you are not positioned for. Mm-hmm. And, usually the results can be pretty catastrophic or not, but I mean.
Or I think even along that is realizing when positions and seasons change, realizing of how that's, taking that to God as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to ask you this, because I think you have a ton of wisdom in this, but are you ever afraid that your dreams or desires won't be what God has for you, so you fear living an unfulfilled or sad life?
I think that maybe a past version of me would have been. But today, no.
Okay.
I've been learning God's voice, and if He doesn't want me to do something, I feel like I'm learning more and more what that sounds like when He doesn't want me to be doing something.
Yeah.
And He makes that pretty clear, which is nice, because then you don't have to question. When He says no, He means it. And that's usually, that is evidenced very quickly, as long as your eyes are open to it.
Yeah.
because a lot of times we can go through things and just put our blinders on, and God's telling you no the whole time, but like you're not seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, that's another conversation.
No, I was literally having a conversation with a friend about that today. Literally having the same conversation.
But I've learned something I have been learning. I wouldn't say I've perfected this yet, but I noticed that I need to change my conversation. So in my prayer life with him, in my prayer time with God, I just chat. That's what I do. I'll just start talking to him. And it's what it started out as is like, is this you, God? Are you sure this is from you? And then like revisiting it, like probably nightly, daily,
multiple times a day,
multiple times a week, you know, just continually praying about it. And I think that a lot of that came from a place of fear. Mm-hmm. We find ourselves checking on things a lot. I mean, I just keep thinking about like obsessive compulsive disorder and stuff. I've talked about having tendencies. Pretty sure you've been diagnosed at this point. Like formally, I don't know.
Yeah, it projects out.
And then living, and we both know people, love people that struggle with that. And that is I think that's the issue, because that, to me, a lot of times, because it's an anxiety disorder. Mm-hmm. And what does anxiety feed on? It feeds on fear. Mm-hmm. And so if you're continuously checking on it, you're creating this false sense of control over your situation, right? Yeah. And so I think that asking those questions too many times, like, Lord, I don't want to get this wrong. I don't want to get this wrong. And not that that's wrong to say, because I think that it's important to pour your heart out to the Lord, and if it's coming from a heartfelt place to say, you know,
I was just going to say, like, it's a great heart posture of like,
Lord, I don't want to screw up. I don't want
to do that. Yeah.
I know what it's like screwing up. I know what it's like going my own way and not asking the Lord for guidance beforehand.
Right. I'm going off my feelings, not.
Yeah, I am a shoot first, ask questions later type of person. Yeah. And that is how I lived my life for a long time. And so asking that too many times came from a place of fear. That's what I understood for the most part. And I don't want to operate in fear, because that is a spirit that does not come from the Lord. So I still ask for clarity in situations, and I'm not usually met with a clear, audible answer, which I think most people, myself included, would appreciate.
Like, yes, no.
Yeah. But when he doesn't, I'm learning to change my, God, is this you? To, God, I'm getting the sense that I'm hearing from you. So, or I have also said, you know, like, Lord, I don't feel like I've heard very clearly from you, but I am going to move forward in this direction. And I'm going to trust that if this is not your will for me, that you will help your very slow child, me, understand to not pass go, do not collect $200. Like, the last thing I want to do is something that is from my will, like my decisions. And as I said, you know, I've been there, done that. And I don't want to go down yet another road without consulting the Lord first. So I'm going to move forward. And then I'll say something along the lines of, you know, if you want me to be doing something different or take another direction, like, make that known to me. Like, because if I'm missing something, help me to see it.
Well, that's about like, right now, I don't feel like I am. Like, I don't see anything, and help.
Yeah. And what that is just what has, you know, worked for me. But also I do list out my concerns and worries verbally out loud. So I'll be saying something like that, you know, let's just take, for example, say I was praying about, you know, finding another job, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Lord, I feel like this is the time for me to start looking for another job. This is just an example. But, so I'm going to move forward with beginning, like, applying for jobs. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And until, you know, you steer me another direction, or if things just don't happen, I'm just going to go and do this. And I'm trusting that, you know, you will either make an opportunity come up for me or it won't. If you think I need to sit here some more, I've talked about that before. I sat at a job for gosh, it was almost 3 years of me just being like, Lord, get me out of this. Come on.
Oh my gosh.
Come on.
Yeah.
But it's important to accompany that with, why are you asking that request? Why are you asking him that? Because it's important to say, I want out of, going off the example, I want out of this job because I don't feel like I'm growing, or I feel like this is a toxic environment. Here's why. Or I think that I could be, doing XYZ, or whatever it is. Like, I'm worried that I'm never going to get promoted. I'm worried that people aren't going to see me or appreciate me for what I do in this situation. And I don't like feeling that way. I thought that I could put up with it, but I don't want to anymore. I want somebody to value the hard work that I put in. I don't want to have to prove myself to people. I want people to see that I take initiative on my own and just do a good job, and not necessarily have to reward me with, financial gain, but that would be great.
I wouldn't be mad.
Say thanks in a monetary way. But also just, it is nice to work in a place where if you work under people, that they are seeing it, recognizing it, and acknowledging that to you.
Right.
And,
I think byproduct of that makes you want to give and do more. Sure. Of okay, I am appreciated, so I would like to. Yeah.
That's just the easiest example I can think of.
That's a great example.
It's expressing those worries and those concerns that are tied to that prayer out loud. Because if you're saying them, he knows what you're thinking. But the issue with being in relationship with the Lord is, it's like our friend Jacob says all the time, God is a gentleman. Mm-hmm. He will wait at the door. He is not going to come knocking it in, he's not going to invade your space by saying, Meryl, I know you've been thinking about this.
Right.
Although he may tell you that after you acknowledge it verbally. But
you've been anxious for 8 years. I'm just kidding.
There's something to be said. I mean, it's biblical that we've said it multiple times. There's the power of life and death in the tongue. Yeah. And he wants you to speak things out loud. He wants you to bring those things to him. So it's like, how can he be involved if you're shutting that part off?
Well, and it makes me think of, we mentioned Jacob, our friend Jacob, but it makes me think of the story of Jacob, where Jacob wrestled with God in the Bible. Literally. And I think that's a perfect example. Or read the Psalms. You want to see what the life of a believer looks like?
Yeah.
Go read Psalms. David starts out God, where are you? How long are you going to let my enemies? I don't know which way to go. I mean, these are actual conversations with God. And then he ends on but you're God and you're good, you know? So it's that, you said the constant communication with, am I taking how I'm feeling to God, or am I just festering it, or am I festering it with other people? Do other people know how I'm feeling, but God doesn't? That's backwards.
It says cast all of your cares. So that means he wants to know all the details. Yeah. And then after that is I have to rest. And by resting, it doesn't mean I just go and take a nap. Sometimes that's required, but, and getting a good night's sleep. But, what I mean in that sense is that I need to spend time working on what I said I was going to, for example, the job thing. Okay, say my next move would be, okay, now I'm going to focus on applying for jobs, tightening up my resume, getting some friends to look at my resume, or, getting pointers, things like that, researching jobs, researching companies so that you can craft a decent, cover letter that explains the best way why you want to work for them, all that kind of thing. And that means that I'm not praying about it. I take a break from praying about it. Did you hear that? You have to take a break from praying about it.
Which seems crazy.
You cast the cares and you leave it there with the Lord. And then you don't have to just constantly, the stress is still there. I don't know what it is, but it's I know that I'm anxious about it, but I feel that if I throw myself into the pursuit of what I feel like the Lord is prompting me or leading me to do, okay, Lord, I feel like you are telling me this. I'm getting this inclination. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and do this. And you can't go ahead and go do the things that you feel like you're being led to if you're continuously stressing about an answer from him.
Right.
And so that's
okay, one of the things you were talking about, like in like going and doing, I heard this and I was just trying to look up the verses, and I actually think there's multiple situations throughout scripture that this happened.
Let's hear it.
This particular one is in Genesis 26, 12 through 13.
Genesis.
I'm just kidding. Genesis 26, 12 through 13. And then the other time I believe that it's mentioned is with Elijah or Elisha. So, I mean, here they come again, but it's seasons of drought that are always listed in scripture. And then when rains come, crops grew. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? That farmers still planted their seeds, even though there was a drought, because once the rains came, the crops grew. Yeah. And so it's that, like that side of, even though I don't see or necessarily know, I'm going to put my hand to something.
That's good.
So
that is good. That is good. Let me ask you another question.
Oh, okay.
What is something that you have dreamt of?
Oh.
And you wrote this question, so it says that God blew your mind. Do you mean like, okay, talk about something that you dreamt of and then God responded and answered it?
And blew your mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So, as crazy as it is, this is maybe not a dream, but it's a situation that like, this is a way that God came through for me, that did blow my mind. And this was when I was actually walking through my divorce. And I remember I was so afraid of every worst case scenario. And I remember going through it, being so afraid that I was going to be stuck in a marriage where I wasn't loved. I was going to have to see my ex-husband and who he was with around town. I remember just being man, like, okay, this isn't working out this way. I know they're together. Am I going to see them out and about? And I just can't. I mean, just every possible scenario or that I could just imagine was running through my head. And it's just like, I'm going to be the one, like, this is all being decided for me. And I'm going to be left to live with all these things around me all the time.
Right.
And I remember being so worried about it, trying to figure out what was actually going to happen, or that side of, what if he does come back around and he doesn't change how he is with me, and I'm going to be like emotionally manipulated all the time for the rest of my life. I just had so many things like that. And when I tell you that God came through and worked out every last little detail, the best way possible, the absolute best way possible. So like taking a terrible situation and where I had no control, and he turned it into absolute good. And I actually just had a conversation the other day with my ex-husband's new wife. And I know it sounds crazy, but I had a conversation with her the other day.
You guys, the times that you should see my face right now.
But when I tell you, like, I can sit here today and tell you God is a redeemer.
Yeah.
And that I have like there's zero hard feelings and that I have. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can take it this way, but I just look at that where it's like, that was a situation that I was so overconsumed with worry that I now, like, I just have peace with. I said, and then one that I did write down that was like kind of like positive and not so like, man, Debbie Downer, but like my new apartment that I was in. I remember being, I was in tears this morning actually about how much I loved it and how grateful I was. That even though it was chaotic to get into it, because I had like water damage in my old wall and then they had to move me. It was like a whole crazy thing with my unit.
It was a whole thing, everybody.
It was a whole thing. But like he literally worked it out that I now have an apartment that I would never be able to afford on my own. But I was able to get into it because of the issues that I had at the other one. So like just little things like that where I'm like, okay, God, you clearly know what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. What about you?
Before I go into mine, I just wanted to say, first of all,
her hand is on her forehead, you guys.
I mean, if you're listening to this, would you be like gobsmacked? I would be, because you're not going to find me. Okay, our scenario is very different.
Our scenarios are very, very different.
They're similar, but they're different because there was infidelity. But like, you would not catch me talking to anyone that my ex cheated on me with. If that gives you any indication of anything about my scenario. But I I had a very similar concern, and that's I was really considering moving to Atlanta.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of the things. And that was one of the things that I was praying to God about, was just like, Lord, I don't want to freaking be here, and I don't want to have to see him, and I don't want to have to run into him. And, you know, just like my night ruined because I see him, or my night or my day ruined just because I see him out in public. And like, and also it's like, I don't want to see him because I was so disgusted with the whole situation. That's like, I don't want those feelings to keep coming back up.
Right. Like, I don't want to have those
just because the whole scenario was just so disgusting. Yeah. Just abhorrent.
That's a great word.
I, as you were explaining that, I was thinking to myself in my mind, I have seen him physically in person twice in almost 6 years.
Yeah.
And they were very brief. And guess what? Guess who learned how to do the disappearing act? Not me. But I think also those scenarios were needed because I had very little reaction inside me when I saw him those two
Almost
times.
like I got you.
No, just
Not
like
that,
I could care less.
Yeah.
You are another person just standing here.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And it was a great, it gave me peace that tie was severed in that sense. You know, because soul ties.
Yeah,
and
that's a very real thing.
I prayed to be released from that.
Very real thing.
But something that I dreamed about, so something that I have dreamed about was having a marriage like my parents, and my mom and my dad would probably laugh if they were here and I said that, but there are things, and I acknowledge and understand there's family drama in everything, in every family. Every family's got it. Everybody's got stuff going on. My parents aren't perfect, but there are things, the ways that they treated each other, that they modeled for me, that I desire so much in a spouse. And some of which I didn't realize that I wanted it until after my divorce, where I was like, oh man, I didn't even know that I didn't have that. But, the way that my marriage ended, like, I realized that God was trying to show me that I had to be ready for what I was really asking for. And that was also something that was like, I had not considered. The world really drives home, you know, that marriage is a destination, as I said earlier, when it's actually a journey, and a journey that begins really when you marry somebody. And with the marriage, a whole host of other things can unfold. You're going to face so many more challenges, but at the same time, you know, you're going to also face a lot of really cool things and go through a lot of cool things together. And so choosing wisely is imperative. My heart wasn't right. I wasn't right. I was forced, you know, into a season of wilderness to unlearn basically everything I thought I wanted in a marriage.
Yeah.
And what I thought marriage would be like. I had such a distorted view of how to accomplish that because I saw, you know, things that I liked in my parents.
Yeah.
But, you know, not having super great conflict resolution skills, and
I'm like throwing both my
super great communication skills, like not having that stuff. I wasn't equipped. And so I went and got married, and there's just stuff that happened in that marriage, you know, that I contributed to because it was like, I didn't freaking know what I was doing.
Right.
And, but anyway, I needed that wilderness season after my divorce. So, the Lord then sent, you know, like quietly, a man to me who would be a friend and largely in the periphery until the first time that we hung out, and the Holy Spirit told me this isn't just a friend thing. Like, this is not just your friend. And he and I were actually at a wedding this weekend, and we were talking about that on the way home. Different things that I was doing that I was like, I can't explain why, because for a lot of our friendship, it was mostly over talking just on social media because he was traveling a ton for work. But something had told me inside, like, maintain this connection with his friends. Like, continue hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Continue spending time around them. And I think, and I was telling him, I think that I was being prompted to do that so that your friends could see me for who I was as a person. And then when you and I got together,
they knew you.
They'd be like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we like her, sure.
Yeah. That's cool. I wish you could see the smile on my face right
It didn't make sense to me at the time because it was little things like that. Like it was this isn't just a friend.
Yeah.
And then, keep hanging out with them. But this was before he had even asked me to even hang out or anything.
Yeah.
That it was like, keep hanging out with them. And these guys his friends were some wild guys.
Right.
They were up late. I had a bedtime of like 8 o'clock, and these guys were out until 5 a.m. Guess what I did? It was funny because, in one of our episodes, I said it was that summer of 2023. I had said, this is not a season that I want to be saying no to a lot of things.
Yeah. Like you're just going to experience.
That was another thing too, was like, just take things as they come.
Yeah.
Experience what you're going to experience because this season isn't going to last forever, right? Yeah. So soak it all in. It's what I've been telling you for a little while 100%. Now. Like, soak in this time, girl, because your number's coming up. Anyway, saying that prophetically over my friend on this recording. But anyway, it's just those little examples and things like that happened over time before we got together that I was like, oh, okay, it's just so weird. But married life, is pretty great. And at the time of this recording, we've been married for a little over 4 months now. And, I'm already seeing why I experienced the bulk of things that I experienced in my time of being unmarried and unlearning who I became.
Yeah.
And then instead learning like who God created me to be instead.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't go through that, I would have, I don't think that relationship with my husband would have transpired.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be ready. And then I'd just be like, I don't even know. I don't want to know where I'd be. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I love that.
So we got a couple final scriptures.
As we always do, we try to wrap up with some verses.
The last one.
The last ones.
Last ones. Which one you want to take?
I'll do 2.
Okay. I'll read the first one.
Okay.
First one is Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. It reminds us that God's ways are higher than our ways. His plans, his thoughts are far beyond what we can imagine. That's paraphrasing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then Psalm 37, 4 invites us to delight in the Lord, trusting that as we do, he shapes the desires of our hearts. I actually want to look that up because I don't know why I have that paraphrased in here.
Well, I think that's so many times too, it's like you hear like, don't trust your heart. And yes, there is an element to that. But like when I think there's that parallel too of like when you let yourself delight in the Lord, he's going to give you like those desires, and it delights him to fulfill those for you.
Yeah. Okay. So he literally says,
go on.
My thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, says the Lord, and my ways are far beyond anything you can imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. What a mic drop that is. If that is not a humbling couple of verses, I don't know what will be.
I was reading in Psalms this morning, and it literally said like...
There's a heaping pile of humble pie, Meryl. Take a bite.
Take some of it. And it was talking about like all the things that God does, and it says like his understanding is beyond yours. It's like basically what it said. It's like, oh yeah, you right.
And then Psalms 37, 4, excuse me, dyslexia, right? Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires.
So good.
You have to delight in him
first.
So
it's not like, oh, I want to do this, Lord, bless it. It's, Lord, I'm going to.
Yeah. Do you need
Habakkuk? No, I think, 2:2. No, you have it written out here.
Do I?
Yep. And then Habakkuk 2:2 says, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it.
Oh, well.
And that verse reminds us the importance of declaring what we believe in, what we hope for, and what we are stepping towards.
What in tarnation?
Did you click the wrong verse?
Oh, it's because I spelled it wrong.
Oh.
So it was going to 2 Kings, and I was like, what?
Like what?
Then the Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets so that a runner can carry the correct message to others.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that is right.
Well, and I think the beautiful thing about that too is like you have the vision, and once you have it, you can run. Or like we've kind of been talking about this whole episode of like, it's okay to dream. Take it, write it down, run with it.
Verse 3 says this vision is for a future time.
Yeah.
It describes the end, and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. So take heart.
Take heart, my friends.
Our dear listeners.
Thank you.
because what God has for you and for Maria and myself is far more than we can think about. And it's a wild thing that breaks the mind to consider that we are loved that much.
Right.
You know? So.
Sheesh.
Yeah, what a time.
What a time. Thank you all so much.
Thanks for being there with us, guys.
And yeah, as we always say out there, make good choices.
I know.
I feel like, should we end it with our make good choices?
I don't know, make good choices. Have a great day. And
come back and listen to us if you ever feel like you still want to have coffee with us.
Go back and read our first what was it, season catch up where we debate candy. That one was a hit. That was a hit. We'll leave you with that.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.